Hey, it's Mark Lanier with your video thought for the day. I've been talking about different children this week, and today I want to talk about an encounter with unnamed children. My encounter comes from Luke chapter 18, and it's a marvelous story, especially if you put it into context. Here it is. So this is a story about Jesus, and Jesus has been teaching a lot of people some very important stuff, and he's just taught this really important concept about how you need to be someone who's not pompous and mighty in their own estimations, not someone who pats themselves on the back, but that humility and an ability to recognize that you're not the greatest in the world is a trait that turns God's heart to you. And so, having told that story, Jesus is about to encounter a very rich, well-to-do ruler of the people, a really important man about town. And while that man's waiting in the wings of the Luke story, just right there about to come, all of these people are bringing children up to Jesus, even infants. Now, we see a baby today and we go, oh, that's so cute. And we love babies and all. But back then, in that era, children were not always viewed the same way they are now. In fact, in the Roman world, children were viewed as non-adults. Children were something that were not accorded value the way an adult was. They were not accorded the rights, common human rights. A Roman father of a family could have left his child out to die on the doorstep. It was not a crime. Infanticide was not a crime. Now, not all people were that way, and certainly God's people weren't. But when these infants and children were brought to Jesus, the apostles and disciples of Jesus were reacting to it. They were like, no. Jesus' time is precious. He's got a calendar. He's got an itinerary. He needs to be talking to the important people. Keep the little children. And Jesus says, time out. Time out. Do not stop the children from coming to me. Children are like the people who receive the kingdom of heaven. In fact, you need to receive it the way a child might. And Jesus took time out from all of the busyness to touch, love, care for, minister to, play with, talk to these little children. Hold the mama's baby. And I'm reminded of a couple of things here. I'm reminded, first of all, that God really does not see the high and mighty people of this world the way we tend to. God always sees the least as the greatest. This is the same Jesus. I did a devotional some couple of weeks ago about how he treated Mary and Martha as no differently than men, which was so different in that world and in that day. Jesus was not a respecter of persons because God is not a respecter of persons. He will lift up the lowly, even as he brings down the high and the mighty. And so when I think about being a child in the world, I think about being a child before God. Paul says that we call God Abba, Father, which was an Aramaic expression to your father of intimacy and of closeness. But in God's minds, we're all children. And so I want you today, if you're a child or an adult or anything in between, to think of yourself as a child of God. Not high and mighty and sold on who you are, but someone who wants the love of God and the attention and affection of God, and is willing to show the same care for the lowly and the needy that God shows, because that's where we'll find God's heart. And if we want to be with God's heart, that's where we should find ours. That's your video thought for the day.